that.
In process.
You're also on.
Now she wants a red carpet for a VIP ride. Why did you tell her? She's 16. Nobody important in that regard. You want a carpet? Oh, go upstairs. How are you?
What's I guess the car you got one? Still not good when I'm not. What were you doing up so late last?
Working on Kevin's project. Didn't come to bed till almost 2. I had no idea how much work goes into building a solar powered house. Are you mute? I should be on mute.
Guys helped him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll talk to you that. I know you got school. You're fixing to get back on, aren't you?
Yeah. Okay, we'll straighten it up. My internet connection. Figured it was from where the cats moved it.
He probably knocked it over.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, guys. One.
Saying that too.
Thank you, thank you. Whoops. Share screen.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Go ahead and put your name into the chat. Also, make sure your camera's on. And for those of you that haven't looked out, it's snowing again. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about domestic violence. Domestic violence is a specific type of violence, happens within close relationships. So, a domestic relationship is going to be anybody who is related by blood, okay? Um, or if you are in an intimate partner relationship, if you are dating, if you've been married, even if you have just had sex with somebody once, that still qualifies as a domestic relationship. Okay. So within domestic violence, we always wonder why people stay. Okay. And so with this, what I want you to do right now, after everybody's put their name in the chat, is I want you to throw out some reasons why you would stay at a job that you hated, that you dreaded going to every day, but yet you still pull your butt up out of bed and go to work and are absolutely miserable the entire time you're there. Why do you keep going back to work?
Because you have to make money to live and pay bills.
Because
Okay,
of the
you
people
have to.
you work with.
The
Oh, we have
security of having a
friends.
job.
Security of having a job. What else?
Benefits.
Benefits, health insurance. What if you feel like you deserve it? You know, if I didn't make him mad, if I didn't push his buttons, you know, what if you grew up watching this and you think that, oh, he really loves me. That's why he hits me. And it sounds kind of ludicrous to think that and say that now. But what if that's what you've seen your entire life? What if you feel like you can't do any better? And we often will criticize people who stay in an abusive relationship when we've done the exact same thing by staying in a job that we hated, but we keep going back day after day. Okay, so domestic violence happens very frequently It is very underreported in both women, and it's even more underreported with men, because of within our society, masculinity, that kind of thing. So with that, domestic violence is something that affects the entire family. And so domestic violence, this is a 911 phone call from a little girl. Her name is Lisa. And you can sometimes hear people say, "Oh, how bad can it be?" And so if you guys have kids around, you may want to shuttle kids out of the room, because this will create some visceral reactions. Okay. So I'll just keep talking for a minute before we actually play that video to give you time to get kids out of the room. Now, Lisa is a young girl, and what is going on around her is her parents are having a fight, and Lisa is very worried about being able to protect her younger siblings. And so, with Lisa's call, she had called 911. She had learned about 911 in school, and that if you're ever scared, you need the police to call 911. So she calls 911. Um, Anybody need me to pause longer?
I'm good on this side.
Okay. So, this is Lisa's 911 phone call.
On the 21st, 1991, time 22:13 hours. This will be a 911 call, position CT07.
Standing emergency. Standing emergency.
My mom and Daddy are having a fight.
Is he hitting her?
Stop it! Send the police, please.
Okay, we're gonna be there. We're taking your baby. Let me talk to you. Where's your mom? What's going on?
They're having a fight because this is bingo forever and ever. They always have this because he has a cousin. He's always drinking beer and getting drunk. And Mom.
What's his name? What is his name? Your father's name?
He's my stepfather.
Okay, how old is he? What's going on? Lisa? Lisa? Fighting on you. What's going on?
Hurry, Mommy.
How's he hurting her?
He made his mommy.
Okay, don't cry. We're gonna send the police.
Okay.
Okay, now where's your mother at right now?
She's in the room fighting with them. Okay, could you just send the police?
Yeah, they're on their way, but I'm gonna keep you on the line until they get there, okay? Is your front door open?
Oh, no.
Okay, then go and lock it and come back to the phone so the officers can get in.
Just wait.
Okay.
He just knocked my sister out.
What sister that he knocked out?
My little sister.
You're doing...
Oh my God.
What's the matter?
Something happened. Just wait for the police. Wait, I want to go see what happened, please.
Okay, the police are on their way, okay? Hello? Lisa? The police are on their way, okay?
Mama, the police are coming. My stepdaddy's got the baby now.
Yeah, Lisa, where is he at now?
What?
Lisa, where? Hello?
So, as you can tell from that call, what do you think the condition was once the police got there?
I think there's going to be a lot of people beat up, and there's possibly going to be a child that's unconscious.
Okay, what else do you guys think?
He probably killed one of them.
Yeah, the
Okay.
baby. He
He killed the
probably
mom.
hurt.
So why do you think the call was disconnected?
He probably disconnected it. The abuser.
Okay, so actually the mother is the one that disconnected the call. Remember, Lisa went out there, Mommy, the police are coming now. And so the mother actually came and disconnected the 911 call. Why would she do that?
To protect him.
To
And
protect him.
because I feel like she's going to do it to also help protect the babies because she knows that they're probably going to call DHS with something like this.
Absolutely.
Or the
So,
retribution when he gets out.
You fear retaliation. Yeah.
absolutely. So can the police fully protect this family?
No.
No.
No. So it makes sense that, I mean, obviously Lisa's scared, right? Obviously, you hear the baby crying in the background. This situation is very tumultuous. So, how's Lisa going to feel leaving and going to school?
Probably unsafe of what's happening at
Unsafe.
home to her little sister, to her baby, to her mom.
Is she going to be able to learn?
No.
No, because she is so focused upon what is going on at home, what is happening now. Frequently with kids, you'll see a lot of unexplained absences. One of the school resource officers was working in Christenberry, which is in downtown Knoxville, Christenberry Elementary. And so this woman was driving erratically in the school zone. So he pulled her over. Turned out she had the little, the little car that is hanging down with the kid's name on it and that kind of stuff. She was there to pick up her child. And he, after he pulls her over, he looks at her shoulder. She has some bandaging on her shoulder. And he's like, "What's going on? And what happened to you?" Because she has some bruises in various states of healing. And we'll talk more about what that means later on. But with that, she had actually been shot in the shoulder and had not been allowed to seek medical care. Why would she not be allowed? I mean, she got shot in the shoulder. Why would you take care of that at home?
Because it has to be reported to law enforcement.
Because
they're
it
going to
has
ask questions.
They're going to ask questions. They're going to be asking questions about what's going on. Well, hon, if you got shot, what about those babies, right? So the officer, the woman had taken some medicine to try and control the pain because there was still a 22 slug in her shoulder that the officer literally had her uncover it, and you could still see the brass from the slug in her shoulder. Okay, so with that, you've already said many of the major reasons why people will not intervene. Okay, what if I intervene and he or she comes after me? And so with this, it tends to be a situation where the violence is pointed at individual people. These people have the control to be able to function within society. They have the control to not go off on their boss, to not go off on the police officer that pulls them over. Frequently, what will happen when 911 shows up is that the abuser is the one that's cool, calm, and collected, and is like, by that point, the victim of the abuse is screaming, acting nuts, because it's the first time that they have felt safe in this situation. And so, in this situation with Lisa, She and the sisters did end up getting pulled out of the home. When the police got there, they found that the mom had bruises in various states of healing. They found that the kids had bruises in various states of healing. It was pretty clear that they were scared of this one person and that the abuse had been going on for a long period of time. So neighbors come out, talk about everything they've heard, that kind of thing. The dad, the perpetrator, had actually left and had taken the baby. They did an all points bulletin out in the county, and this was way before Amber Alerts, obviously. But they were able to set up a large enough perimeter that they were able to stop him and get the baby back. Everybody had to go to the emergency room because everyone had been hit. So he was actually held for 24 hours and then he was released. So guess where he went back to?
Home.
And guess who was in trouble for having told?
That baby.
The little girl that had called 911. So she then became the target of abuse, and then eventually DHS was able to intervene and pull them out of that situation. But can we expect a family that's living in this much turmoil, to be able to think and make rational decisions?
Can you repeat the question, please?
So with this situation, this phone call that you heard, this family, can you expect them to be able to make rational decisions, or are they making emotional decisions?
I would say emotional because they're in fight or flight.
They are
They're in their fight.
They are absolutely in fight or flight. And so with this, it's something that abuse has been within our society for a long time. So what do you think? Was beating your wife ever legal?
Absolutely. The rule of thumb on the court steps.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. British common law, this started back in the 17th century. It was perfectly legal, acceptable, and expected for people to beat their wife. Women didn't have any rights at that time in the 17th century, as long as it followed the rule of thumb. The object with which they were being beaten was not bigger around than the girth of their thumb. So what they would literally do is they would hold the object up. Okay, Mr. Jones, you have this stick and you were beating your wife with this stick. Where's your thumb? And they would check to see if the object met the rule of thumb, or if it did not. Has a crime been committed or has it not? So throughout time, this is the historical context on which the laws in the United States were created. So back in 1882, lawmakers got together and said, this really shouldn't happen. But this didn't really change much, practically speaking. So back in the 1970s, this actually was kind of an offshoot of the civil rights movement, then feminism. And with the cultural change that was happening in the 1970s, a lot more resources and a lot more light was shown on the situation of domestic violence. So in this, it was the first shelters. It actually provided some place that you could flee to, helplines, and orders of protection. Now, an order of protection, this is a little different than a restraining order. And a restraining order, I can go get on anybody if I'm willing to jump the hoops for the paperwork and pay the money. So I could go get a restraining order on Brad Paisley because I don't want Brad Paisley to be around me. Should I have the money and the time and the inclination to do so? Now, with an order of protection, this is a little different. This is strictly within the context of a domestic relationship. So again, it has to meet certain criteria. Now, an order of protection, the person filing it doesn't have to pay unless it is unable to be served. Okay. So 9 times out of 10, they're able to serve the order of protection. So it comes at no cost to the person seeking it. A restraining order, on the other hand, you have to pay the cost up front, and it can be against anybody, not necessarily somebody that you've had an intimate relationship with. Why are we talking about this today? We're talking about it because it happens a lot. Almost half of the women who are killed are murdered by a male partner. Now, when we're talking about the majority of domestic violence victims being women, there's a couple of different factors in play for that. Men don't report, okay? Especially within the United States society. And they don't report as often. Unfortunately, there's not as many resources available for guys who are experiencing domestic violence. Now, absolutely, guys are beat up every day by a woman, okay? What tends to happen when you look at the criminal psychology is that domestic violence boils down to power and control. And so when a woman becomes violent, it often is not motivated by power and control. It tends to be motivated more by revenge. So it's a little different. Abuse causes more injury than any and all auto accidents, rapes, and robberies in the United States. Okay, so it is a huge, huge problem. And it's more common than these major conditions like diabetes, breast cancer, cervical cancer. So when looking around your classroom, about 1 out of every 3 people are a victim of some sort of abuse at home. So, sorry, the date is wrong on this. This is supposed to be 2023 statistics. So, 46 calls per day. That is, figure each call takes at least 30 minutes. How much money could we save if we were able to eradicate domestic violence? This is just Knox County, okay? This is just the reported cases, and like we said, we know it's underreported. The dynamics of abuse. So this abuse, it happens all across the family. The animals are also affected, kids are affected, the perpetrators affected, the victims are affected. So it starts off small. Now, none of us, let's use myself as an example. If I went out on a first date with a guy and he beat the crap out of me, am I going back out with him?
Not if you haven't seen it.
The answer is
I would hope not.
I would hope not. Miss Sharon just responded, not if you have any sense. With that, it doesn't start like that. It starts with small things. You know, I really don't like it when you wear that outfit. Well, is me wearing one outfit a big deal? No. Okay. You know, that color and nail polish just doesn't look good on you. Okay, not a big deal. Well, then it goes from that color to, why are you wearing nail polish? Well, no, I don't like this outfit, this outfit, this outfit. And what's happening is slowly I am giving up parts of myself. Okay. So it starts with emotional abuse. Okay. It starts with psychological abuse. This isolation from friends and family. It doesn't start off with, I don't want you to ever see your mama again. It starts off with, you know, I know you always go out on Friday night with your girlfriends, but this Friday night, I have concert tickets. So if I skip one Friday night, is that a big deal? No, not at all. But what if it's this Friday night is concert, next Friday night is something else, next Friday night, something else. Pretty soon it's been 2 months since I've seen my friends. Are they pleased with me? No. So the isolation starts so slowly and it's so insidious that you don't realize it's happening until you're already elbow deep in it. Then it continues for sexual abuse. If you loved me, you would. Okay. Unwanted touching. Well, what do you mean you don't want to go any further? All of this is part of the dynamics of abuse. And then it can turn physical as well. Okay. And this runs the gamut from fingertip bruises, from grabbing your arm, all the way up to strangulation. We'll talk more about that later on. So, this cycle of violence, it happens the same way every time. You start out, you meet this person. He completes me. I just love him so much. He completes me. He's my world. And then day to day tensions start to happen. And then you can tell that there's a fight brewing, but you don't really know when and where it's going to happen. And then, bam, you have an explosion. So during this explosion, names are called, bad things said, physical violence happens, followed by, I'm so sorry that you made me do that. I love you so much. If you will give me another chance, then and you're back in the honeymoon period till tensions build again. You have an explosion back in the honeymoon period. So once you're in the cycle, it continues nonstop. Each time you go through the cycle, it happens faster and the injuries become more severe. Okay, so this is called the cycle of violence. So it starts off with small things. Push, then you get slapped, kicked, choked, and you may commit suicide or be murdered as a result of this. So it starts off with name calling, criticisms, insults. You're stupid. You're worth nothing without me. Humiliating you in front of your coworkers, people that you know. And it goes from, if you loved me, you would, to you're just a slut, up to forced sex and potential death. The abuser. So I found this picture online, and unfortunately, abusers aren't quite as easy to pick out as this gentleman is. I mean, he even says that he's an abuser on his shirt. Okay. So, with that, I also found this online. Punch her in the face to prove you're right. So, abusers are from all walks of life. According to the FBI, what do you think are the most common occupations of abusers?
It would be the high stress jobs, probably your cops, your lawyers, your
I believe
soldiers.
I think
You
I
got
read
3 of
somewhere
them.
that I think I read somewhere that police are 48% More
Police?
likely to be domestic violence.
Okay. So I heard the last one in there too.
Preachers.
Preachers. Okay. Bet you wouldn't have thought that. Okay?
Anyone in law enforcement.
Absolutely. So police, military, okay, lawyers, doctors, clergy. Okay. Huh. What does this mean?
They're all men or women in power.
They're all men or women in power. We like to think that this guy and the guy that's wearing the tank top that has gotten the social nickname of the wife beater t-shirt, we like to think that we can pick them out. But we're going to be working with them, one of the major groups, every day. Physicians. So with this, all these are people who have positions of power. And when the doctor talks, you're supposed to obey, right? When the police officer talks, you're supposed to obey. You're supposed to do what the preacher says, right? So it's not as easy as to say that domestic violence only happens in lower socioeconomic levels. It happens in all walks of life. Okay? It happens everywhere. So this list is actually, we talked to guys and that were in anger management groups, and we talked to them about some of these myths. And this is what they say that did not cause the abuse. Okay. So genetics. Just because you have the genes and the propensity to potentially choose violence, you still have that brain that is going to allow you to control this behavior. Okay. If it wasn't just out of control behavior, when the boss calls you into the office and tells you you're doing a crappy job at work, you don't beat up the boss, right? Well, when the police officer pulls you over, you don't beat up the police officer that pulled you over. So it's not just losing control of out of control behavior. In these situations, people are choosing when to let this out. And they actually said that they would drink so they had the excuse to hit. So they could have that as a crutch when they felt that brewing within them, the tension, the turmoil, they felt like they were going to abuse. That they would often use alcohol or drugs to allow them to go ahead and let that out. Now, victim's behavior, there is nothing that you can do to deserve to be abused. This is systematically choosing where this happens, when this happens. It's not done out in public, tends to be done behind closed doors. And relationship problems. Relationship problems are not a reason for abuse. But relationship problems happen because of abuse. So why does somebody choose this? So ultimately, they choose to use violence as a way to regain control, the way to gain control.
Doesn't it make them feel like they have power over the situation where they really feel like they don't? They're very insecure, and
they do tend to be very insecure. That's because they're not beating somebody up that's bigger than them. They tend to choose somebody who is less likely to be able to, they're smaller. Females tend to be smaller than guys. And
they want somebody that won't fight back.
Less likely to fight back. Absolutely. And frankly, it works. if you are so scared of what's going to happen, you're going to be walking on eggshells and you will do or say anything to survive. Okay. In some of these situations, we've talked to the victims and they would say, you know, I would pretend that my significant other was right behind me watching every interaction I had with my coworkers. And in some cases, they actually did have binoculars watching them for every interaction with their coworkers. But if you are terrified of being hurt or your children being hurt or your animals being hurt, you will do or say anything to survive. And unfortunately, we as a society haven't held abusers accountable. So, by us not wanting to talk about it, like today, we've talked about all different things that nobody wants to talk about. So, we've talked about suicide, we've talked about drug abuse, and now domestic violence. By us not talking about it, we say it's not a big deal. And so that actually gives these people more power. And it boils down to power and control. So here's some different warning signs of an abusive personality. First and foremost, if a person is very jealous, okay, and jealousy can be interpreted as love, okay. With this said, chronic jealousy is a warning sign. If they have hit somebody else, well, the ex-wife had a restraining order, but he loves me. He would never hit me. Well, with that, that is also a warning sign, okay? Somebody that has very controlling behavior, unrealistic expectations. Send you to the store with $40 to pick up diapers for the baby, 24-pack of beer, and also some porterhouse steaks for tonight's dinner. Will $40 cover that? Not so much. But what happens when you don't come home with all of the above? And so frequently.
Well, they get pissed and it's your fault.
Okay, absolutely. So unrealistic expectations, and they also push for very quick involvement. So I've met you. This is our first date. You're the one for me. You're my soulmate. I love you. And they push for quick commitment. Hey, I know you've only been in my life for a week, but I'm sure you're the one for me. And you're still in the part of the relationship where all of your neurotransmitters are buzzing and they want to marry you in a week because you're the one for me. I love you. And they slowly will start to isolate and they tend to become very hypersensitive to anything that can be interpreted as criticism, that it's kind of like they never get body odor. I mean, because they're just perfect, right? If somebody can be mean to a child or to an animal, they absolutely can be mean to you as well. They often will have playful use of force during sex. It doesn't start with being hit. It starts with small things that claim it's not a big idea, okay? Claiming male privilege. Well, I'm better than you. Sudden mood swings, pressure tactics. If you love me, you would. And their criticism. Criticism can be constructive or it can be destructive, okay? Constructive criticism is, hey, I mean, that color shirt or that shirt really doesn't do much for you. Why don't you change into this shirt? You look great in this shirt. Okay, that's just the wrong cut. So that is constructive criticism. Destructive criticism is, I don't even know why you're trying to make yourself look good because you're just ugly and you're stupid. And you are just so lucky that I stick around because I don't have to be here. And all this is destructive criticism. Okay. Now, what happens? You hear, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're not worth anything, I'm better than you, you're lucky to have me. You hear this over and over and over. You start to believe it. And so, with that, you end up running into problems with you start thinking that way. Well, that was kind of, do we all do stupid stuff? Absolutely. But then you take it and go, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe I am lucky to be with them. And so from there, you start internalizing this and you feel like you can't stand on your own. So, other warning signs: controlling finances, manipulating children, family history of abuse, any kind of threats of violence, or any kind of breaking or striking objects. It tends to go from breaking objects, it can go into physical abuse. So, one thing we say is, well, why does she stay? She must like it. Well, we talked about that, and she doesn't like it any more than you like going to work at that job you hated. Okay? But she stays for the exact same reasons that you identified. You've got friends at work. You got to have money coming in. Maybe she isn't working and uh, he is the breadwinner. We talked about lifestyle. All of these professions, a lot of them have money involved. So, once those of you that have been through a divorce, you tend to lose friends. They tend to side with one person or the other after a divorce. So, you have all these different things that you're worried about. You're worried about what happens if you stay. You're worried about what happens if you go. Will he kill me if I stay? Will he kill me if I go? So these are obstacles. You want to think the best about this person and you do love them. You are very isolated and often don't have other people you can turn to. The isolation can also be as a result of taking the phone out of the house when the abuser goes to work. Well, if you live 2 miles from anybody and there is no phone in the house, and there is no car in the driveway, how are you going to get help? Other times I've heard stories of external locks being placed on the doors so the doors couldn't be opened for anybody to leave while the person was at work. There's very real dangers in leaving, but there's also very real dangers in staying. You may be financially dependent on this person. Family pressure. Family can be your best friend in this situation, or they can be your worst enemy in this situation. They're your best friend if they say, I get it. You're not ready to leave yet. When you're ready to leave, let me know and I'll help you find the resources that you need. Okay? They're your worst enemy in these situations if they're saying to you, do you know what I put up with from your father to keep a roof over your head? And you're going to leave because of that bruise that's going to heal? You're going to destroy your family and take away the roof from your children's head over this? And so that puts additional pressure on people to stay in the abusive situation. And often they have very low self esteem and they feel shame. They don't want other people to know what is happening behind closed doors. The church. So, here in Knoxville, we actually have an ecumenical religious council that works with the domestic violence agencies through the Family Justice Center, the church can help you leave an abusive situation. Your religious beliefs can help support you in getting out of this situation. But they also, as this billboard says, don't let your worries kill you. You can let the church help. Very bad phrasing. They also can be another obstacle to you leaving if the religious doctrine of the church is something like, wives, submit to your husbands, so saith the Lord. And that's where they stop it. Okay. So they also can say, you need to pray your way out of this situation. You need to just pray for them to change. Or if they don't change, pray for the ability to be able to sustain and survive what's going on. There has been something that you've done that God is retributing you for. And so with this, they often will use that verse I just quoted, wives, submit to your husbands, so saith the Lord. But the part they leave off is that very next verse. And husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. So with that, you really don't see any passages of scripture where Christ beat the church into submission. So it's always something that's very voluntary and very open. So this can also be an obstacle to somebody leaving. So orders of protection, we talked about, these are only within domestic relationships. And an order of protection is as strong or as weak as you make it. Okay. An order of protection, there's two types in Tennessee. The first type is a no contact. This is called the Chinese wall order of protection. So if my abuser's name is John and I'm in the grocery store, John walks into the grocery store, sees me there, he is to turn around and leave. Okay. Or if that's the Chinese wall order. No communication, no text messaging, no phone calling, no mail being sent through snail mail, no contact via email, no message relaying through friends, no contact. Zip. Now, if you have an order of protection like this, each voice message, each letter, each email, any kind of attempt to contact can be prosecuted. Okay. So it's 3 days for every violation. So we had one person who just kept power contacting and trying to make contact with this person. And then over a week period of time, they literally had over 1,000 attempts that were documented of their attempt to contact this person. So figure that out. Each one of those is a violation, 3 days. They now get 3,000 days of jail time due to attempts to contact. Okay. So that's the Chinese wall order. Now, in Tennessee, we also have what's called a social order. So a social order of protection means I can still live in the same house as my abuser. I can still go out on dates with that person. They can still be around the children. But the order is with a social contact order is that you cannot abuse. Okay. So it increases the penalty for abuse after you have been warned through this order of protection to no longer abuse the other person. It also orders them into therapy and anger management as well. Now, we often get frustrated with people who are in an abusive relationship because they keep going back. They must like it. They do. They keep going back. Could you imagine a police officer taking you to your house and telling you you have 5 minutes to get anything you need to start a new life? Could you do it? Most people couldn't. So what happens is each leaving is a process. It's not an event. Okay. So it's a journey. It takes on average 5 to 7 times of leaving the relationship before a person can permanently separate from the abuser. Abuse affects children in a ton of different ways as well. You may see increased anxiety, it's tummy aches, chronic headaches. So when you heard the phone call from Lisa, who was making the most rational decisions at that moment? Lisa. She was trying to get help. The child had assumed the role of the adult, and they tend to be fearful all the time anyway. Kids that grow up in abusive homes are more likely to be abused as adults. There's also a cycle where kids who um, kids who grow up in abusive homes also tend to be abusers as well. Again, it depends upon the different factors and the different therapies that they have gone through to be able to cope with these adverse childhood events. These kids commit suicide more often, and they're more likely to commit crimes against other people. And most juvenile male offenders who are in juvie for murder actually murdered their mother's abuser. Okay, so this is long-term effects. Animals, like I said, this tends to affect everybody in the family. Animals are abused and are often manipulated as well as a way to control the person. Now, if you love your dog, love your cat, and you can't take your animal with you, this will keep people in an abusive situation. However, here in Knox County, through the Family Justice Center, and honestly, other counties now have Family Justice Centers. So I believe Roane has one and Anderson has one as well. The Family Justice Center actually has deals with the animal control agencies to be able to foster your animal while you are at a shelter, because you can't flee to a shelter. You can take your kids, you can't take your dog. So there's actual agreements in place where while you are at the shelter, they will ensure that your dog or your cat has been taken care of and is safe and is healthy while you are seeking help. Okay, so health issues. So what do you think happened here?
Skull fracture.
Skull fracture. Excellent x-ray reading. So with this person was actually hit with a piece of a 2x4. And so you can literally measure the fracture, and it measures perfectly for 2 hits with the 2x4. And so this actually, the person died soon thereafter because it ended up causing brain hemorrhages with it. But as you can see from the x-ray, can you guys see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so here is where the first strike hit. And so you measure that out, that's a 2x4. So what ended up happening is it ended up causing some basilar skull fractures inside that you didn't see as well. And that's what contributed to the development of the internal bleeding.
Oh, so I'm sorry. So was this a woman that was hit?
Yes.
Wow.
So health consequences, trauma, anywhere from bruising in different states of healing all the way up to death, homicide, or suicide. Now, when you see things on the news, okay, there's a certain pattern that happens. I mean, I could kill somebody with one bullet, and that, if it's placed effectively, that'll take care of it. Or I can kill them with 2 clips, okay? Shoot them 15 times, or shoot them 20 times. Or I could stab them once, and that's going to stop them from attacking me, right? That one stab wound may kill them. Or I can stab them 56 times. With domestic violence situations, because they are responding based on emotion, not upon logic, you are going to see an element of overkill. Okay. So with this, and I really don't mean the pun of overkill in this situation, but they're not going to be stabbed twice. They're going to be stabbed multiple times. You'll often see injuries to the face that you won't see in just strict homicide, non-domestic homicide situations. They'll be stabbed multiple times. They're already dead and they're still abusing the person, still abusing the body. And so if you're being hit all the time, kicked all the time, being told you're stupid and you're not worth anything, and, I'm just so lucky to be with you. Thank you for having me. Does it make sense that I'm going to be depressed and that I'm going to be anxious? And then having bones that have been broken that I haven't been able to get set? Does it make sense that I could be having some pain? Or I could be having some psychosomatic um, factors like chronic headaches that are nothing helps with, because that's not what's actually causing it, is not the normal mechanisms. It's actually due to our psychological makeup. It hurts less to be hit while I'm drunk. So the victims and the abusers both report alcohol and other drug use, because just like the drunk driver never gets hurt because they don't see the wrecks coming and they don't brace, same thing happens with being abused. So during pregnancy, abuse often begins, or it will get worse during pregnancy. Because what's happening? Who is now in control? Those of you that have been pregnant, how do you feel when you're pregnant? Are you in control of your body?
No, the baby is.
Absolutely. The baby is. So with this, you'll see signs such as low birth weight. Even if the person has access to food, the chronic stress causes low birth weight, causes bleeding, fetal injury, or death. So we had a woman, her brother had not heard from her in 6 hours. It was an abusive situation. She had left. And with that, she was in hiding at somebody else's house. They were at work. The abuser found her, broke in with a crowbar, and with a hammer, she was 6 months pregnant, proceeded to knock her down, kick her repeatedly, and beat her with a hammer all over her face, all over her chest, all over. Okay. And so with that, her brother hadn't heard from her. She wasn't answering the phone. He comes to the place, sees that the door's been broken into, finds her in the dining room floor, bleeding everywhere. She has bruises all over her stomach. And the person, the abuser, was a construction worker. And so she actually was miscarrying, and the baby died. But it was caused by kicks with steel-toed boots. So you could actually see the lines around the stomach where she had been kicked with these boots. And so, in looking at the bloody footprints that were around too, but again, there's an element of overkill with it. So when you're assessing for domestic violence, a big thing is to just ask the question. It's kind of like suicide. You got to bite the bullet and you just got to ask. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't make it like it's a big deal that you singled this patient out. You ask everybody. Okay. Now, do I want to ask in situations where another person, let's say that it's a lesbian couple and they're there for an OB visit, okay? And so they've been admitted into the mother baby unit. She's about to have a baby, and this other person is like overbearing. So, how are you feeling? She's feeling fine. Well, how much pain are you in? She's in about a 4. Well, how is another person going to be able to tell how much pain you're in? So, what you need
They're
to
not
do,
going to.
they're not going to. You need to make sure that the person is screened alone. Whether this be done, how big are hospital bathrooms? They're pretty tiny. Come on, it's time to go use the bathroom. Let's go in here and try and use the bathroom, or take them to radiology. This is especially effective in the emergency department. You know, you wait right here. We'll be right back. There's nobody gets to go to radiology. Nobody gets to stand back there. And even if they're not actually having an x-ray, it is a very good way to get them alone to be able to ask questions. Okay. Now, just like we've talked about, at least we've talked about in my class, I'm sure your other professors have as well. Have you had the patient that swears that they're in a 12 out of 10 in pain, and they're sitting there scrolling their phone and they got a Big Mac in this hand? Does it appear to you that they're in a 12 out of 10 in pain?
No.
No. So you still have to document. Patient says that they're in a 12 out of 10 in pain, and however, patient is scrolling on cell phone, chatting with family, and eating a Big Mac. So you document the patient's story and the injuries, but you also document why this is inconsistent. Okay. And we're going to talk more about how to figure out if an injury is inconsistent. And you want to provide resources to this person. And like Nathan said, they may not be ready to leave yet, but you're planting a seed. Okay. The Family Justice Center pulls agencies together from all over the community. So it's a one-stop place for you to be able to get help if you're in an abusive situation. How do you ask? You say, I don't know if this is a problem for you or not, but a bunch of people that I come across every day have experienced violence in their relationship. And honestly, screen everybody, women and men. Okay. I routinely ask if is somebody hurting you? Can I ask you some questions about that? And then just follow up. Is somebody hurting you? Did somebody cause these injuries? I know you're saying that you fell and managed to black both your eyes without hitting the bridge of your nose, but it kind of looks like these could be fist prints. Has somebody punched you? Have you been threatened? Do you feel safe at home? Do you feel safe at home? If somebody doesn't feel safe at home, that is a red flag right there that
I brought this up. I had to switch to my phone.
that something is going on. So lethality assessment, we talked about that the cycle gets faster. It also the injuries get more severe every time you go through it. So you find out, have there been threats of homicide or suicide? Are there any weapons present in the home? Is the person depressed? Is the abuser depressed? That's when murder-suicides tend to happen. Alcohol, drug use, is this an issue? Has an animal been hurt? Big things not to ask. You must like this. You keep going back to him. Just go ahead and go back. Why don't you just leave him? Oh, well, what did you do that caused him to do this? So all of those are victim blaming. And so never ask questions like that. So behavioral cues of abuse. So lack of eye contact. They are going to feel so bad about themselves and that they are worth so little that they don't have enough courage to even look you in the eye. Nervous or inappropriate laughter. Okay, so that's going to be, you start asking questions about this, they start giggling. That is a pretty big clue. Constant crying, because at some point people just have breaking points. Defensiveness. Oh, well, he didn't mean to. Or you notice some bruising or some marks around their neck, and they say, "Oh, that's not a big deal. Yeah, it was an accident." And also, somebody wearing a long sleeve turtleneck in the middle of July, that can be a red flag. Okay, so an overly attentive partner, or why are you taking her to the bathroom alone? You need to leave that door open. An overly aggressive partner can also be indicative that there's something else going on. So, our hospitals historically have not played well in the sandbox together. So, they use different healthcare services. There are frequent flyers, okay? Because if I'll go to one facility all the time, let's say I go to Fort Sanders for a broken leg 6 months ago. I go to Fort Sanders 4 months ago for some broken ribs. I go to Fort Sanders for a head injury, um, for a car wreck that there's no police report on. Then they're going to start to put together the pictures, the pieces of the puzzle, and figure out what's going on. So they often use different physicians, different hospitals, tend to have very vague complaints, tend to be very reluctant to speak in front of the abuser, or like you ask a question, they will turn and look at the other person while they're answering, just so they can gauge from that person's face if they're saying the right thing or not. What do you need to look for? So you as the nurse need to look for any centralized distribution, okay? Most injuries in a domestic violence situation will occur from the level of the collarbones to the level of the hip bones, okay? So that is a centralized distribution of injury. What would be the benefit of only being injured from your collarbones to your hip bones?
People can't see it.
People can't see it. Absolutely. Bilateral distribution of injury to multiple areas. This sounds big, fancy, and complicated. It's not. Think about when you fall. You're going to try and catch yourself, and you're going to fall to one side or the other, okay? You're not going to have bilateral injuries to multiple areas unless literally you rolled down the steps and hit every step on the way down, okay? So if it's just a simple fall that they're coming in for, but they have bruising, especially if it's bruising at various states of healing in multiple areas, that's a red flag. Any kind of delay between the injury and presentation for treatment. I was shot with a 22 last week and I'm here picking my kid up for school. That can be a red flag. And if the injuries are inconsistent with the patient's explanation. And so with this, you're going to see patients with chronic pain because you don't know how many times bones have been broken. You're going to see people that can be very confused and it's hard for them to process information just due to the overwhelming chronic stress that they've been living under. So this kind of thing is how it starts. Okay, so if you look at that bruise down here at the bottom, right here, that's the thumb. Okay, so what happened was this person started to walk away. This is their armpit. So they grabbed them at the arm. The back of their hand goes on the back side, wraps around. Here's finger 2. Here's finger 3. Okay. And so with this, you can see fingertip bruises. So these red circles are fingertip bruises. This is the way it starts. Now, with this, it can still be covered up. That sleeve pulled down, you'd never know. But fingertip bruises, it starts with something small and then it gets bigger. Okay, so it doesn't start off with major abuse all at once. It starts off small. Each time they go through the cycle, it gets faster and the injuries become more severe. Okay, so this woman's story was that she tripped and fell off one step. Does this make sense?
How high was the step?
That's a good question. So just a regular step was her story. She tripped coming out of her house.
Was there a cliff under the step?
Good question. Okay, so you're seeing the inconsistencies with the story and the way the patient looks. So look at these bruises. Here's older bruises. Here's some middle of the road bruises. There's some bruises. Oh, look, there's bruises in between her legs. How do you get bruises on the inside of your legs when you're falling? Kind of hard. What about all these? Oh, look, looks like she's been on a rotisserie and she has bruises everywhere. Okay, this did not happen from a simple fall. Okay, so what about this stuff on her neck? What do you think this is?
He looks like they choked her with something.
They did.
It's something. It's not a handprint.
It's not a handprint.
Maybe like a shoestring or something.
A seatbelt will do that when you're in a car accident.
It will do that in a car accident, but
Maybe like a rope.
She doesn't have any documented history of that. So a rope, good idea, but it's going to leave a slightly different print. So
That could be a
extension cord or something.
Like a
an
shoestring.
extension cord is going to leave a difference. Let me explain why, okay? So see right here how we have little bruises?
Ooh, the
TPI?
necktie. That was good.
But it's not a consistent
It's
mark.
from a chain.
An extension cord is going to leave a consistent mark. Okay, you're going to see exactly where that ligature was. And we can see the direction that she was it's called being garroted. And this person was standing behind her and was holding it at probably about T1 is where they were actually holding it at. Now, this is something that's going to have give to it because it hasn't left a consistent mark. So this is going to be something like pantyhose, a shirt, clothing, something like that that's going to have some stretch to it. And that's the reason you have this bruising that's inconsistent. And then we have this mark right here, and it's even a bruise right here. What's this from? What was she trying to do to be able to breathe?
She's trying to get it off. It's like her thumbprint or something, you know.
Pulling it away.
Get her hand in.
Yes, that is a defensive wound, okay? Because this was around her neck. She was trying to pull it off, and she clawed herself, okay? But do you see where the bruising is, the direction of it? So she was choked and it was being held low at about level of T1. It is not something that was like a cord or a rope. It would have left a more direct imprint. It's something that has stretch to it. And so that's why we have this. Okay. So this
Is her chest bruised as well? Sorry,
Yes.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine. You're fine. Yes,
Wow.
her chest was bruised as well. And all these are juicy new bruises, right? And so with that, these are her legs. This is her chest and her chin. So what do you think happened?
Somebody tried to kidnap her. I mean, I could be wrong.
Potentially, but we've got bruising
She
in
was
various
trying to get
stages of
away.
healing. So this didn't just happen all today at one event.
She's being abused.
She's being abused. Okay. So when the nurse pulled her aside and is like, you know, this here on your neck, that looks like, has somebody tried to choke you? Did they put something around your neck? And she started crying. And of course, this was done without anybody else back there. This is also one of the reasons why they will not let family members back in an emergency department until the team has had time to do an initial assessment. It buys you time to figure out stuff like this. And so with this, she started telling her story. She was planning to leave due to all of these injuries. And then he had attempted to choke her with pantyhose. And when he got her down from that, he had proceeded to kick her in the chest. Okay, so this woman here on the bottom, her story was that she fell and she hit the doorknob. Is this consistent, or why not?
No, 2 doorknobs.
2 doorknobs. Now, another thing is your eyes are sunk back in your head, right? So if this were to be true, shouldn't this bone up here, wouldn't that hit first instead of the deep structures? Wouldn't I have issues with my nose and the bridge of my nose? And not just marks or bruised eyes? So with this, upon further questioning, then she admitted that she had been hit in both of the eyes. So let's look at this picture here, okay? Now, I don't have a picture of her neck, but you can see up here, she was, had something around her neck as well. Do you see this has a more direct indentation impression? This was a small, like one of the super tiny women's belts. And so our last person, the ligature was actually behind. I'll go ahead and go forward. The ligature was actually behind at about T1. Right here, this has come up in front of the ears. So she was already on the ground when the tension was being pulled around her neck. She also has a clear indentation here on her neck that you can't see. And then do you see these different marks and different bruising coming up to the chin? They didn't have a good hold on the head. So as they were pulling on it, it's creating bruising going all the way up. Okay, so this actually is a post-mortem exam. What do you see?
A handprint.
See a handprint. See a handprint that's been applied a couple of different places. And if you look right here, post-mortem cause of death was the trachea had been crushed. Okay, so with that, you also see scratch marks. Where do you think the scratch marks came from? Her or the abuser?
They were from her trying to get his hands off.
Those are called defensive wounds. They are from her trying to get the hands off. Okay, so This woman came in and she had said she had fallen getting out of the shower. Is that consistent? Why or why not?
The marks are more smaller. Like if you fall and hit like the floor or something, it'd be like
Different
more
stages of healing too.
yeah.
Yes.
They're
The
not
marks are all over the place. It's not just if I fell and hit the side of the bathtub or hit the floor, I'm going to have big marks one place, right? With her, we have marks on the breast. We have no marks under the breast. We have marks on the side. The armpit. How do you get a bruise in your armpit? Then we have bruises in multiple stages of healing. Look at you got fingertip bruises here on the forearm. You've got previous injuries here. You have bruises that are older here. And then further back on the face, we have more bruising. Okay. So this wound here, okay, actually here and here, this is blown up here. Do you see a pattern? Can you make out what that was?
Is that a
It looks like a boot.
It is. It is a boot print. Why do you think it's a boot print?
Because it's a big bruise, and I'm sure they were probably lying on the ground.
Okay, so right here's where the heel went in. Right here, it was the perp's right foot. We could literally measure him for a pair of shoes because right there is right under the big toe where the ball of your foot is. Right there's the big toe, and look, there's each of the little piggies. And so with that, we can see where his arch was. There's no bruising there. So that is actually what happened here. And what happened here, you know those big Mac Daddy mag lights that have like 6D batteries in them? Police often carry them. You literally can take the end of that mag light, shove it up in an armpit, and control somebody, and they will do anything you want them to do as a result of that. Okay? So with that, we have several different things. We have a footprint. This bruise, how are you going to get a bruise in your armpit? Bruises in multiple stages of healing. Previous history at the hospital of unexplainable injuries. So with this, there's several different factors that can lead us to believe that it's abuse. Okay, so how do you chart this? You're going to do a detailed map of the injuries, complete with color of the bruising, so older bruises versus newer bruises. You want to document what the patient says, what the patient tells you, and you want to record why that is inconsistent. Okay, so you would say patient states she fell and hit a doorknob. This is inconsistent due to patient having bruising of both orbital sockets, etc. Okay, and another big thing is getting permission to take photos of injuries, and those can stay within the medical record. Now, Tennessee is not a mandatory reporting state. Some states are like for domestic. Tennessee is a mandatory reporting state for elder abuse, for adults who are disabled and not able to take care of themselves who are being abused, and also for child abuse. But unfortunately, it is not a mandated reporting state for domestic or animal abuse. So you want to make sure that you get as much documentation of this as possible, because even if this person isn't ready to leave today, this could be beneficial to them in the future. So the reason people don't ask questions about domestic violence is because they don't know what to say. 5 key messages that you want to relay is that you don't deserve to be abused. So you're afraid for their safety, afraid for the safety of their kids, because let's face it, oftentimes parents will do stuff for their kids that they would not do for themselves. Let them know that the abuse will only get worse. Explain to them about the cycle of violence. Each iteration through it, the injuries get more severe and it becomes faster. And let them know, I'm here for you when you're ready to leave. We'll help you find resources. Tell them about the Family Justice Center. Tell them about ways that they can seek help on their own in the future. Family Justice Centers are collaborations of city and county governments, and the one here in Knoxville, it involves over 60 different agencies. So it's located over by Vine, and it has both Knoxville Police Department and the Knox County Sheriff's Department housed under the same roof. What this means is it removes the jurisdictional barriers, because you being covered under the Knoxville Police Department versus the Knox County Sheriff's Department can literally depend on which side of the road you live on. So with this, if you show up at KPD and, oh, you actually need the Sheriff's Department, instead of telling them that they have to go to another different physical location, you literally can go a couple offices down and go, you know, here you go. Here's my buds at the Sheriff's Department. They can help you. You also can do rape exams there. They have SANE nurses, sexual assault nurse examiners that are on call, who can conduct any kind of sexual abuse exam, rape exam. Kids don't get exams at the Family Justice Center. Kids and adolescents actually get their exams at Child Help, because they are specifically geared to working with sexually abused children and adolescents. So for emergencies, call 911. Here in Knox County, you can call the Family Violence Helpline. I know many of you are in other counties. If you are needing help finding resources, the Family Violence Helpline connects with the Family Justice Center, and they can provide you with resources available within your county and different shelters available in your county. Okay, remember, you can make the difference by just simply asking questions. Okay, so what questions do you have for me? No. No questions?
No, I think we're all good. I'm good at least.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so we are done for the day. Dr. Greg, you want to add anything?
No, I'm good.
Good deal. Okay, so you can go ahead and get started on that other stuff. Apparently there's been more snow since I've been talking that I haven't seen. My daughter came out and said there's more snow. So with Snowmageddon, you can go ahead and get caught up on some of the other assignments. Be a leg up and ahead of the game.
Dr. Stanley, somebody just asked and I wanted to let them know, yes, it is one paper for each episode. I suggested to my students, if they want to look at the paper as like 3 different paragraphs, do one paragraph on the synopsis of it, 1 paragraph on how it would affect your life, and then 1 paragraph on how it changes your perception as a nurse, just to give you an idea of what to write about.
Sounds good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About that paper. When you said there will be a paper to write. I went ahead and wrote it last night and it's 2 pages. Do I need to revise that?
I am never going to penalize for it
Okay.
being more than required. My key issue is, sorry, my dog is going nuts.
I mean, I know now for all the other ones, I just did that one.
That's fine. It's fine. Perfectly
Okay.
fine. My big issue is when students start to manipulate the paging to turn 2 sentences into a page. So they make like 3-inch margins on each side, size 42 font, that kind of thing. Okay. So unless I've specified it, then that kind of stuff can happen. Not that I would expect any of you to do that, but that has happened in the past. So I've actually had a student give me their grandmother's obituary 2 different years in a row. So grandma died multiple times. They literally was the same obituary. They had changed the date on it. Okay.
And Deb asked a question. Deb, all I was saying was as a suggestion, if you don't know what to write about, if you do three paragraphs, usually gives you a page. If you did 1 paragraph on a little synopsis of the like what the video was about, then you can do a paragraph on maybe how it affected your life, viewpoints that changed for you personally, and then how the 3rd paragraph, like how it would affect your role as a nurse. Just an idea.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't catch all that.
Yeah.
I have a question about the AA paper.
Yeah.
Do we need to watch a like previously recorded AA meeting or do we need to sit through a live one?
As long as you watch the whole thing, I don't care.
Thank you.
There's a question on the paper for the AA form about some sort of handout or something. So when you do the online ones, will it still have that thing that you're want the answer on that?
Yeah, that's
for?
just talking about group dynamics. And so with that, what was effective about the way the group was working, what wasn't effective about the way the group was working, that kind of thing.
Okay, thanks.
What else?
So if we go to an in-person AA meeting, we have to stay for the entire thing, right?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes. Same thing for the online. This isn't something that you like show up for and you sit down for 5 minutes and then, okay, peeps, bye, out of here. Okay, so you have to stay for the whole thing.
Okay, thank you.
And Monday's clinical at 6:30. Are we meeting in that little circular area?
One of the circular areas by surgery.
Okay,
the
yeah.
surgery entrance. So we'll meet at the surgery entrance.
Right. And we still have to park way out in East Nowhere's land?
On Monday, yes.
Okay.
So the weekend groups, it isn't quite as bad. The good thing about Park West is they do have shuttles. So that helps.
Thank you.
What else, guys?
I've never been to Park West. Is there like a map that's been sent to us about where to park at Park West? Because I don't think I have one.
TCPS should have had a map on the hospital.
Yellow.
Oh, I did that last semester when I was at Methodist, so I don't have to redo TCPS.
No, both are Covenant facilities.
Tamara, if you go to the hospital and it'll say the emergency room, there's all the way in the very back is where you're going to want to park in the parking lot at the emergency room.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think Dr. Greg was saying that TCPS has a map that you can find of Park West parking lot.
Yeah.
Tamara, it's a lot in the back that has the arm.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, then we'll go ahead and adjourn for today. Thank you for spending your snow day with us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Guys, good luck.
See you, Lee.
Bye.
Thank you.